Welcome to episode 4 of our 8-day anniversary special of Around the Verse. Today we are celebrating Origin Jumpworks. I'm your host, Sandi Gardiner.
And I'm Chris Roberts. So, Origin Jumpworks has earned a dedicated following thanks to their emphasis on sleek, elegant styling and high-quality materials and components. Origin is also a nod to Origin Systems, where I created Wing Commander a little while ago, and I think a few of you probably remember that. So, back to our universe. Origin Jumpworks was founded in Germany and had strong ties to Earth for much of its existence, but never one to fall behind the times. They relocated their headquarters to what is now considered the cultural heart of the empire, Terra, at the start of the 30th century. Many feel that this move helped revitalize the company, and Origin's latest designs, like the all-new X1, have been meeting with high praise.
Speaking of their latest designs, coming up right now in today's Ship Shape segment, we're going to sit down with Jared, our art and design teams, to highlight the current development of the sleek 600i.
Yeah, should be cool.
Ship Shape.
Origin Jumpworks, source of some of our best looking and most prominently owned ships in the Star Citizen universe. At present, the 300 series and its variants alone make up almost 9% of the over 1.4 million ships owned across all backer accounts, with the 300 specifically clocking in at number 5 in total ownership. It's a brand that immediately spoke to Star Citizens for both its design aesthetic and promise of an improved lifestyle in the verse. Today, you can jump in and fly the Origin 300i, the 315P, the 325A, the 350R, the M50, and the 85X. But we've recently added several more Origin-branded ships that are just beginning their journeys from concept to reality. Let's check in with some of the team members working on the recently revealed Origin 600i.
What does it take to build a symphony? It takes a blueprint. 4 movements that will dictate key, tempo, and the arrangement of musical notes that will create harmonies, melodies.
General purpose of the 600i is it's really the Origin equivalent of the RSI constellation. The constellation's kind of seen as being like a core ship integral to the game, so we're getting to the point now with the ships that we create of making like different manufacturers making the equivalent kind of competing ship to that one.
There's 2 versions. The Explorer is designed for people who want to go out into the far reaches, explore some things, but also do it in a way that's comfortable and maybe a bit stylish as well. The Origin manufacturer has always been quite luxurious, and we really want to push that forwards, going ahead with the new designs and with the 600i. When we were initially designing the new look, we looked a lot at BMW concept art. We quite liked the luxury car aesthetic to the Origin stuff. So, if you've seen some of the concept cars that they've been coming out with, they're pretty crazy, and we just like to bring some of that luxurious element to the ship as well, make it feel a bit more familiar and grounded.
The main thing of the white box was to make sure that we could include the module in the middle of it, because it's a modular ship, so you get to swap out the main core of it. At the moment we've got 2 modules. One of them is like a grand luxury kind of module in the center, which is fireplaces and all kinds of glass, and it looks really slick, and if you're inviting people on the ship, you're really kind of inviting them in there to show off. Whereas the exploration one, we swap out that main core, and what you get with that is extra scanning stations. You've got a drop lift for a rover as well, and then additional cargo space. So if you're taking that out exploring on planets, you can bring stuff back in your rover, and you've got somewhere to store it as well.
There's some space there for cargo as well. We've got these nice wall-mounted grav panels, so if you're familiar with the grav plates on the floor, we've integrated them onto the walls now, so you can sort of stack them up quite nicely. I think it's 3 high. And then above we have the scanning station, so that's 2 consoles with like a nice glass partition where you can actually look down from there into the garage and see what's going on below. And from there you'll be able to scan, planets, things, and make it quite functional really. We've built the central section with a scanning station on top and a garage below for rovers and ground vehicles. And we've tried to utilize the space as best we can. Actually, the Origin aesthetic is quite good for that because it's quite minimalist and it's quite quite clean and sleek. So there isn't going to be a lot of like exposed panels and like wires hanging out and big like panels with like warning on them. We've tried to keep it fairly subtle so that the idea is we have these nice clean panels that you push in, maybe they release outwards, and then behind that you get all the technical stuff. But then just like you open up a car bonnet of, say, a nice like luxury car, it's not a mess. It's all very carefully considered. Everything is sort of molded and that carbon fiber look and everything. It just looks really nice and clean despite it being quite rugged. The Touring strips out all the central bits that had the garage and the scanning station, and instead you get a nice like living space, I'd almost say. So if you wanted to transport people around in style, or if you wanted to use it as maybe an executive ship, or like a fancy transportation ship for dignitaries or something, like an ambassadorial ship, I think that would be the one to pick. So right now we haven't actually started that one, but the plan is to have really nice indoor like lounge spaces and spaces for extra beds and extra living space, essentially. So it's a little less functional, but more, maybe I think when more player-run events start coming in, you'll probably see them a lot more being used for, ambassadorial stuff. All we need to do is fit the metrics to what's already there with the exploration module and just swap the contents with the Touring specs. So instead of having the scanning station and the garage, it'll be bedrooms, a lounge, maybe a hot tub. I don't know. We'll see how we feel, but that sort of thing, basically. So that's the kind of thing we want to go for. It's really cool to do that with the Origin stuff, just because it is a departure from how we've done stuff in the past. And yeah, I think people who own one are certainly going to feel like they've spent their money well.
It's kind of nice to work with a limitation, and that's kind of what you get with having a modular system. Is like you kind of have to base everything around this core layout, and by doing that, it kind of gives you more creativity because you're working against the restrictions, so you're finding creative solutions to them.
We also looked at, for the interiors, the designer, or the architects, Zaha Hadid. They were quite interesting futuristic designs that are quite sort of seamless, semi-asymmetrical, quite futuristic designs, and a lot of their buildings and design work. So we tried our best to kind of integrate the two together in a way that was quite interesting, because, I mean, the Origin ships are going to look very different to, say, like Anvil or Aegis. Like it's an entirely different approach we're taking with how we design them, how we implement the artwork and so on. But we want to try and keep it nice, and like the shapes are quite flowy, they're quite seamless. And then it's just about adding that nice little panel breakup to make it feel grounded and quite realistic. Because if you just have one giant shape going through the whole thing with no obvious seams, it can feel a bit strange. Looking at the Origin series of ships, I think as much as any luxury car is, as much as it is a nice functional vehicle, it's also a statement.
So the types of players who are going to go for the 600i will be the kind of people who would like the convenience that you get out of having a Constellation, but also like to showboat. It's really going to be the case that when you see one of these flying around the verse, you're going to be like, wow, okay, that guy has really gone in for it. So yeah, it's kind of really there to appeal for looks as well as the gameplay as well.
I imagine corporate leaders, guild leaders, traditionally speaking, in other MMOs, they would tend to have slightly nicer ships just to reflect their status as much as their wealth and so on. Because if they're running a big corporation, they're most likely going to be the richest people in the corporation. So yeah, people of standing, I guess, people who have earned quite a bit of money in the game, who maybe want to show it off, maybe try and not just sell their corporation, but sell themselves as people to look up to and so on. And we're just trying to kind of nail that aesthetic with the way it looks. I mean, if you've seen it in space, it's this bright white, sleek, elegant, shape. Basically, it stands out, and I think it'll always stand out compared to things like Anvil and the Aegis ships, which are more angular and a bit darker, a bit more rugged. Then this thing shows up, and it's like, what's that? So I think that's the appeal. The way you model those and the way you integrate everything. Because of our custom normal system, we have to make sure everything's nice and smooth so that when the light shines off it, it doesn't warp and look all deformed and strange. And it's very easy to fall into that trap with this style, so we've got to be very careful. Everything has to be very carefully considered to make sure all the shapes sort of integrate themselves nicely into each other and flow, because if there's any sudden terminations, in, say, a shape or like a direction of the shape, it can look very jarring. It can ruin the style. It can look just wrong. You know, you just look at something, you go, that looks wrong. So it's trying to avoid those pitfalls while trying to maintain this really nice, seamless, stylish look. I've personally been working a lot with the Aegis stuff in the past. And, you know, Aegis has a certain look, has a certain style. And when you get comfortable with that, it's fairly quickly to do. And then jumping on to the 600i, because we're progressing the style forward as well as everything else, it's a new challenge. There's new shapes, new considerations to take. It's definitely one of the quickest ships in the game. I think it can definitely make a hasty retreat if it has to. If it can't, it is armed with some pretty useful weapons. There's a turret in the back which sort of folds out of the hull, which is pretty cool. So it can definitely defend itself. It will probably want an escort though, especially if it's carrying some important people. And for the exploration module as well, you'll probably be able to hold your own against things found in the farther reaches. So yeah, speed is key though, I think, with this one.
One of the key features to it, which you get regardless of the module that you've picked, is there's like a viewing lounge towards the rear of the ship, which has got a big glass canopy on it. We've done concept art where there's like holographic tigers and lounges to chill on, and it really kind of sells what the ship is all about, to be honest.
I like the corridors particularly because we've been able to get some of the nicer elements in there, like we've got this big stone wall. As you enter the ship, you sort of rise up through this elevator. The first thing you see is this big stone slab with, you know, Origin written into it, and I just think it's such a departure from other ships. It's like, this is, you know immediately where you are, what you're in, what the context is, you know, when you see something like that. You know, I often think, what is a symbol of luxury and fortune in space? And I think it's getting, you know, heavy objects into space is always a challenge. And I just think having a big piece of stone there, it says like, you know, I've got the money to afford this, you know. So it's, for me anyway, it's quite a cool thing to put little like details like that in there. And then also on the elevator itself, we've got these little leather padding like going around the side of it with some like stitch work and things. So getting these little things in, just to set it aside from everything else and above as well, that's very important. And the way the light reacts with the white paneling, so we can make areas look cooler. And in the corridors, we wanted it to feel more homely, so we've gone with warmer lighting. So yeah, it's just balancing things out like that. It's been challenging, but it's you know, one of those challenges you relish and you want to get it right. So it's good fun.
It was called the Symphony in Motion when it was first introduced at Gamescom 2017, and the 600i is the ship that's bringing the Origin brand up to speed with our newest tools, techniques, and metrics across Star Citizen's development. The 600i is currently in gray box phase, specifically the kit bash of remaining interior stage, where many of the finer details that will set Origin ships apart from manufacturers like Anvil and Aegis are being designed, created, and integrated into the ship. This is an incredibly important stage of the 600i's development because it will affect all Origin ships going forward, as many of the decisions made will apply to ships that are awaiting reworks like the 300 series, or those who have been waiting in the wings for their time to shine like the 890 Jump. Speaking of which, let's check in with some of the team that'll be working on the ship Origin called an engineering marvel crafted to impress from every angle, the 890 Jump.
So the 890 Jump, we haven't actually started that one yet, but the idea is once we're happy with the 600i of where it's going, we'll then begin to move assets and sections from the 600i to the 890 Jump. That doesn't mean it'll be a clone copy, it just means that once we've figured out how to implement the style and some of the technical considerations, once we're happy with those, we can then start very quickly fleshing it out because we've already got a frame of reference. We've got the 600i we can look at and say, how would this work? And then we can start, you know, jumping back and forth and really figuring that out. So yeah, the 890 Jump's much larger. It's going to be a much bigger challenge, I think, a lot more complex because of the size and the scale. But it's been one of those ships that I think everyone's been kind of waiting to see. And it's just, you know, the pressure's on to get it right. I do think the 890 Jump will be more of a touring vehicle. You'll definitely see, you know, parties and things going on there. It's more of your like party yacht sort of thing.
We got a lot of pictures of like luxury speedboats and cruise ships, cruise liners, that sort of thing. It's bigger than the Tally. I wouldn't say it's Idris sized, but it's quite large, mostly luxury touring. There's like hotel rooms and stuff in there if you want to run it as a travelling hotel like a cruise liner, or you can have it function as diplomatic sort of functions if you need to. The back part was this big 3-tiered sort of atrium area with balconies around it, and there would be a bar and a jacuzzi, and the top's open so you can park it somewhere nice and see planets and stuff. We could easily swap that out for other kinds of places, like a big, maybe a theatre or just a conference room, one of those amphitheatre type conference rooms, that sort of thing. That could be cool. There'd be all sorts in there, really. Maybe if even like some kind of pit fight, if you're into that, that would be fun, I think.
It definitely is going to be used for like transportation and things as well, but it's just got so much. It's got more things like, you know, more bedrooms, more space for actual ships. I believe the X-85 or the 85X, that will be included as like a snub fighter for a little cargo bay within it. So it's got a bit more range, I'd say, certainly than the 600i. So whereas the 600i, maybe it's like a corporate transport vessel, the 890 Jump would be like, you know, a corporate and then some. So you'd have like maybe the CEO, but then also his general staff, you know, his underlings and so on, his entourage.
A unique and innovative design. With the finest materials and the most advanced technology, the 890 Jump looks to become a vessel that will be in a class all of its own. On the ship pipeline, the 890 Jump is currently holding between concept and white box phase, while much of the team that will tackle this magnificent beast cuts their teeth on the previously discussed Origin 600i. In this way, the work that's currently being done on the 600i is work that can and will be applied to the 890 Jump. So we can safely say that our days of traversing the stand system without the luxury that some of us require are, well, those days are numbered. With that, this episode of Ship Shape comes to a close, but I'll be right back here tomorrow with something a little different and very unique, a look at Consolidated Outland and more about how this will work. But don't forget, if you haven't already, you can take the Observer test currently up on the RSI website for your chance to win one of the brand new bounty hunting ships, the Anvil Hawk. It's no purchase necessary, and the full rules are there for those of you who are interested. For Ship Shape, I'm Community Content Manager Jared Huckabee. Back to you, Chris and Sandy.
So once the 600i is complete, we'll have a full set of materials and shaders to flesh out the 890 Jump, which I know quite a few of you are waiting for. So that'll be cool. But in the meantime, visit our website to see the lineup of Origin ships that are back on sale from now until December 4th.
Also, don't forget we have our special happy hour coming up this Friday where you can vote for the next brand new Drake ship to go into Star Citizen.
Which should be pretty cool. And that's it for day 4. Be sure to check out our store to receive 20% off all merchandise until December 4th. As always, thanks to all of our backers and subscribers for your ongoing support of Star Citizen. We couldn't be making this project without your help. Nope. And tune in tomorrow for our next ATV special on Consolidated Outland.
Until then, we will see you around the verse. 4, 8, 90 jumps, 3 tumbrels, 2 hammerheads, and a hawk in a pear tree.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.